Okay, in this video we're going to be doing, clearly we're going to be using shapes, right? Only shapes to create an amazing logo, right? And I'm going to be using only shape for this video. So we're going to learn about the importance of shapes, right? And how to manipulate shapes to our advantage to use in creating great mascot logos and miniatures also. So let's quickly do this, and what we're going to be doing is going to be much more better as it looks now. So we're going to change this to a default design real quick, and we have our default page over here. We'll come over to pixelLab, and we're going to be doing quick over here. We're going to be deleting this new text over here. I'm going to hit delete over there. So I've deleted that, right? So let's start creating our shapes, right? We'll head over to our image tool over here. Now this is our image tool. Now we'll head over to shapes, right? You see shapes over there. Now by default, pixelLab going to give us a square shape. We'll have an opportunity to go over and click this square over here, an opportunity to choose some different shape. So we want to create a bow tie firstly. So let's just choose a rectangle. A rectangle we go, right? We can go with a rectangle for this, right? So we have a rectangle over here, so we can decide to reduce the size or not. So we just click OK. I'm going to copy this. We'll tap this and head over here and hit copy. Let's copy this because we need two rectangles, but we can just delete this first. Now let's work with this. So what I'm going to do next, now I want to rotate this first rectangle. Let's rotate it, right? We're going to rotate it real quick over here. So let's rotate this by 90 degrees. We have this over here, and we also have an option to copy this, right? We have an option to copy this, which we have, and let's also rotate this. But we're going to head over to 3D rotate, not normal rotate. I'm going to rotate the x-axis to 180, right? So we want it to face the other side. Hope you observe what we just did over here. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to tap the other shape. I'm going to click 3D rotate. I'm going to rotate the x-axis to 180 degree. And after that, I'm going to position this real quick. Let's head over to position. I want to position this over here. So position them together. So hope it begins to make sense now. So with this small things we're going to be doing, I'm going to be creating an amazing shape. So let's just jump in. But firstly, I want to change my image size, the size of my Canva. Let me change the image size over here. I'm going to click. Let me use a YouTube thumbnail so you can see this really big and clear. So we have it. So you see a split over. So we can see this big. Let's start the process. Let's move this over here. Right, so we have this over here. So let's make sure that in the same location, right? Let me show that in the same location. So let's head over to our position over here. Let's position this nice and good. So let's head over to our grid tool, so we can find the grid tool at the top. Now we're going to use our grid tool. We're going to head over, after clicking our grid tool, click the grid settings over here. We're going to position some lines to guide us. So position these lines over here. So we want our shape to be there. So I'm going to also position a marking line over here where we want our end shape to be. Sorry for that. Right, so we have these lines, so we can just delete the lines we don't want. Let's click this. Let's delete this line, for example. We can just delete this, right? And we can just keep up with the lines that we need, right? And delete the ones we don't need. So just position this over here as a guide, so we know what we are working with and under which circumstance we are working. So we're going to off this over here. So we have our guide, nice and cool over here. So since we have our guide, we know within what we are working, within which frame we are working. So we have achieved our shape. So we have this amazing looking shape over here. Now next we want to be doing, right, we need some buttons, right? Let's make something like some buttons for this shape. I know we are done with our bow tie, but since we are creating a logo, we're creating a logo for a laundry brand that wash clothes, suits in particularly, or just Tuxedos. We're also creating a logo applicable to clothing shops that says Tuxedos or suits. Now let's create cyclic shape over here. So what I want to do next now, after we're done with this, right, we want to merge these together. If we are sure they are okay, let's quickly head over to merge, and we're going to merge two of them together. I've merged that, so we can just resize this and play around with that. So we're going to head over to shapes also again, and we have by default will give us a square shape, but if we increase the radius of this square shape to 100, it's going to give us a cycle, right? So we can just reduce the size of this cycle over here, right? We can adjust it to any size I want. I'll just click good, right? So let's position this. Let's move this a bit forward so we can see what we're really doing here. So now we need buttons for this, so let's just position our buttons. Just position this over here. So we have this over here. So just position like 2 buttons. So we have this. If you feel it's too big, let's lock our first shape. If you feel the buttons are too big, we can go ahead and reduce it, right? But let's just go with this, and let's copy this, right, and duplicate this. Let's position, let's bring it forward. So if you observe clearly, we are using only shapes for this. Please take note of that. We are using just shapes for this. Now we have this. Now let's create some guide. Let's create some guide for our cycle shape. Now let's create some guide for this. Since we are done with the triangle, let's make sure they are the middle over here, right? Let's make sure they are the middle. I want to make sure, yeah, that these things are really in the middle. So first, let's position our shape over here. Let's position it in the middle, relative position. Let's make sure it's at center. Then also we also want to position this also at the middle. But first, let's head over here and let's tap our head over to this, and we'll tap our both cycle, and let's edit this. We're going to position this. Let's do that again. Let's tap and let's position this. At the middle. So position this at the middle also. Okay, so there we have it. So let's set our grid tool. Let's make sure it's in where we want it to be, and let's make sure it's within this frame throughout the entire video. So these grids are very important and helpful. So we can have the grid tool over there. Okay, now we have them, and we want to make sure they are in the same line, right? So we have our grid tool, so we can just tap on any grid tool that I want and manually position it. Let's move this a little bit, and let's move this a little bit forward. So we've just used rectangle and cycles so far for this video. Now let's move on. Let's use triangle and cycles. Sorry, let's move on to using the rectangle tool, right? So we have this over here, and let's position this, right? Let's merge these cycles together, right? So when we're done with a particular shape, we merge the shape together, and let's also lock this shape so it's not going to affect our design we're bringing in. So we're going to head over to shape again, tap our shape. By default, also they're going to give us a square shape, but we can just extend this as we like. We can manually move this, right? So we want to make it a triangle. We want to use this as a leg, right? We want to use this as a leg. So if you're observing, we're coming out an M. An M is coming out from all the designs we're doing since. So we should see what we're pretty much doing here. I'm going to be increasing. Let me increase the sizing a bit also. Okay, we're going to be changing the color for this. Let's reduce the sizing for the leg a bit. Okay, we're going to be changing the color of this, so something we can see, so we know what actually we are working with. So we have this over here. Now let's hit this. Let's move both these, right? Let's move them upward a bit. Okay, nice and cool over there. So we can quickly work with this. So let's position this, and let's make sure it's at the extreme end. Want to make sure of that. Want to make sure that the M is at the extreme end of this. So let's also move this a bit. Want to move this also. Okay, we have one more movement to make. Move it by 1 pixel. So there we have it. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to apply the same principle for the other side. So let's copy this and let's position this over here. Right, so let's head over. Let's use our position tool. Let's reduce our sizing a bit and make sure it's at the extreme end. Let's reduce our sizing, move it, because we don't want any white to show. We want to make sure this is at the extreme end, so our logo is going to look professional. Right, okay, there we have it. But there's one more thing. The sizing. Let's check. We'll go back to our grid tool. let's go to setting and let's make sure both of them are on the same line, right? So let's off our grid to a bit. So we want to make sure they're on the same line, so we have to move this a bit. We'll go over to position and let's move it by 1 pixel. So we're going to have to bring it down a bit. Okay, there we have it. There we have it. I want to make sure they're down. So let's bring this down a bit. Okay, there also we have it. So if you observe carefully, we have created an M with a tie. So the name of the company is Mr. Mex. That is the original name for the design we're doing, Mr. Mex. But I'm not going to be going ahead using Mr. Zali or Mr. any stuff I'm going to be using for this particular tutorial. So what we're going to be doing next over here, we're going to be merging some stuff over here. So let's quickly, before we move on with our merging and go ahead merging our different stuff, let's quickly save this as a project, which is very important. We're going to click save as project. So let's put Mr. Logo. I'm gonna go 1. I just save it like that. So I've saved this as a project. So now let's merge some stuff together. We're going to merge both the legs together. Okay, they have been merged. They have been merged, right? So what we can also do right here, we're going to merge the legs. Okay, now we have done that nice and cool over there, right? So we have merged the legs and merged some other stuff and part of the body. Now what we want to do basically also over, I want to give this a texture. Very important. When you give this a texture, right? But for that, let's add our last merge to that. Let's merge this. Let's merge the cycles. I wanted to give the cycles another different color and spice, but just merge it together. So we have it over here. So we head over to our texture. I'm going to hit our texture. I'm going to find a nice texture for this. So head over to where I keep my photos and find a texture for this. Okay, we have this nice texture over here, this yellow wall that has been scratched. We should take this out. Okay, here we have it. We should head over the texture and make sure we enable maintain main ratio. We've enabled that. And the next we want to do also for measure this together, we want to also click our cycles. I want to give this a texture also. Give the texture that is also looks more nice and spicy. So we'll go head over to our photos and just choose a nice texture for that. So I also have some texture over here. I should go with this blue and check if the blue makes sense with it. Okay, so I want to also maintain my ratio for the blue, right? Okay, this looks nice, so we should merge everything together. If you don't want to go with blue, you can use any color of your choice, but you get the idea behind what we're trying to do. So we have completed everything with just shapes. So right now we have the right to reduce the height as we want to, right? We can just reduce the height and we should position this in the middle, right? We can position this in the middle anywhere we want to, and we can just decide to include some text if we want to. So I'm going to include some text and just edit here and write something like, you can go ahead and write something like Mr. Logo, right? Then we hit OK. Then we have to find a way to position this at the center. I'm going to have to change the font. Head over to fonts. I'm going to choose a nice font already, right? So we can just decide to increase the sizing. and also try our best to position this at the center. Okay, we have this right and nice over here, but you can also decide to bring this down a bit. So we have this Mr. Logo, and we can also decide to give it a texture. So what about the texture? So let me choose some textures for my photos. So we want to go with the same background. So you shouldn't bother about the backgrounds, they will be included in your resources. So we have this background over here, and we want to also maintain ratio for the background. So we have this Mr. Logo over here, right? So our design, we're almost done with it. If we aren't done already, we're completed with this. So if you love the design like this, okay, you can go ahead and just finish it, right? Or you can decide to position your Mr. Logo down here a bit. You just need to play around with this and decide for yourself what you want to do with this. But now what I want to do quickly, I want to just merge both of them together, right? And I want to position this middle, right? Also what I want to do here, I want to include background. So head over to background and click from gallery. I want to include some background to our design. So let me head over to my photos and get some background. So I'm just going to head over to my memory card. It's my SD card. Okay, so I'm just gonna go with my favorite background. It's okay. Okay, we have this via. Okay, so I have my Mr. Logo. And what I want to do real quick now, I want to add some style to this. Go over to my text size and just increase the relative size a little bit. So I'm going to increase the width, right? So I'm also going to position this at the middle also, right? And I want to also head over to my 3D shape. I want to on this, right? I want to reduce the depth, just use the depth of 2 or 3 will be okay, right? So, and over here I want to darken this a little bit. You increase the darkness to 100. I want to rotate it. I want to rotate this a little bit. So we have this over there, and lastly want to emboss this, enable that, and want to increase intensity to 100. So also the ambient lighting and the specular hardness. I want to reduce the bevel. I want to go with bevel 5 or 6, right? Will be just right for this. So that is it. And lastly we want to include our attribution. So we're going to go ahead and include my attribution, very important. I'm going to position this lastly, and want to change handwriting, which is the font. also want to reduce the text sizing for this. Right, so there we have it also. So we can also went ahead and decide to style the background by reducing the brightness and many other things to make our design look even more realistic. Right, you can decide to do this, and we can also decide to change our light direction if we head over to our emboss tool. Okay, so that is it for this video. Don't forget to save your video, and I'm going to see you in the next image. Save it as an image, so put it in ultra quality, and I'm surely going to be seeing you in the next video. So I'm going to click save gallery. That is it. So I've learned how to use shape and the importance of shape also in designing, because it's an element of design and a very important element as that in designing. See you in the next video.